So here we are, 11 p.m. on Monday night, and I just finished putting this episode together. But I felt like it warranted me coming back in to put in a little preface. You'll find during this episode that my voice changes at certain sections, and that's because it took me the whole day to get this recorded and put together. Some days are like that. I have a lot of kids at home. We have a lot going on. Life is full. I've had kids that have been sick. And there's a part of me that wanted to either just scrub it or go back, take the transcript and read it so that it would be one clean, fresh copy. But the reality is I'm only human too, and I need my sleep, and I need to learn to show up imperfectly just as much as the rest of us. And so on this journey into community, I ask for your grace. You'll notice that there are those points where I might be in my closet or I might be in my car. I might be in my car in front of my house versus in the drive-through line with my car off, but other cars might be on. It's a little bit, it's imperfect today. But the message is still the same. And I want to encourage you that wherever you are on your journey and however imperfect it might be, keep going. You can be imperfect and awesome. And I hope you enjoy this episode. Solidarity Sister, Solidarity Sister. Welcome to the first Monday Minisode of the Solidarity Sister podcast with your host, Kristen Wilson. I'm so excited to be able to start talking to you about the books that I'm reading. I read a lot more with my ears now than with my eyes. Audiobooks are fantastic because they allow you to multitask where you're running carpool or doing dishes or making dinner or commuting. If you are someone who works and has a commute every day, it's a great way to use that time that you already had to be spending doing something. I'm often found with one AirPod in. I usually keep the other one out so I can be aware of my kids and whatever needs come up, or if I'm driving, that I can be more aware of what's going on the road. So on these Monday Minisodes, I'll be sharing just some of the books I've listened to recently. In the last couple of years, I've been averaging 350 audiobooks a year, which is a lot, but it's because I listen to them very quickly. So this week's reads Why the Sky is Blue by Susan Meissner. And this was a book that has some heavy topics in it. It's fiction. It's beautifully written. It does have the instance of a mother who is sexually assaulted, and it's the story of this child that comes from that assault being given up for adoption and kind of the story of how their paths connect later. It is really honestly a beautifully written book, even though the subject matter is heavy. There's a quote right at the end of the book that I've really been pondering a lot since I finished it. And it says, "Love is not blind. It sees more, not less. But because it sees more, it is willing to see less." And I've really been pondering that and trying to, kind of decide what I think about it. That really when we love someone, we are willing to see the whole person, but also sometimes we can choose to allow them to grow and to not be defined by certain actions or characteristics that they've had. Please know that this is not me saying that we should excuse abuse in any way, but all of us are flawed in any relationship that we have. We are going to have disagreements. We're going to let each other down sometimes, and there's got to be room for forgiveness and for being able to focus on seeing the best in each other. So this book was really, it was a good read, and I would recommend it. The second book on my list is When There's Hope by Elizabeth Smart. I'm sure Elizabeth Smart is a familiar name to you. When she was 14 years old, she was kidnapped by knife point in the middle of the night from her home and abused for 9 months until she was found and able to be rescued. And she has really made it her life's work to be an advocate for other victims, to try and empower women with skills to stay safer. I really admire her a lot. And there were a couple of things that she said that I really appreciated in this book. She said, "You are not defined by what happens to you, but by the choices you make after." I'm going to say that one again. You are not defined by what happens to you, but by the choices you make after. I think that's really powerful. Elizabeth mentions in the book that a lot of people have asked her where her resilience came from. She said, "My family, my faith, and a broad, stubborn streak." She also talked about a family culture where her parents really encouraged a mindset of never give up, always strive and hope for the best possible outcome. And having this being the mindset of her family really helped her to have the grit that it took to stick it out through those 9 very difficult, I can't even imagine how difficult months. In this book, she goes through and she's able to interview quite a few people. Some of them are more famous than others, but all of them have met with some serious adversity in their lives, and they've been able to hold on to hope and persevere and still lean into joyful living afterwards, which it can be much harder to do than to even talk about. And I found it to be a really inspiring book. I also love the way Elizabeth wrote about it because she's very matter of fact. She has a young daughter as she's trying to do these interviews, and sometimes just motherhood it gets in the way of doing these other things, but also motherhood is such an important work. And I love the way that she's able to prioritize being a mom and also prioritize doing this other important work and be able to do her best to balance those. Sometimes it's messy, and I really related to that because even doing this podcast is super messy. Some of this episode I recorded while waiting in a carpool line. Life is around us all the time, and sometimes it's easy to say, well, I already have all these responsibilities, I can't do anything else. But when there's something that's calling to your heart and there's a purpose that you feel is driving you, it's important to be able to lean into that as well and be willing to do it messy. So I would totally recommend this book. I found it very helpful and also very relatable. Sometimes stories of hope don't feel relatable to me. Like I feel like these aren't real people. They're too joyful and they're too optimistic. And how could this even be? And maybe that's my own cynicism and my own struggles at times with depression talking. But these stories I found to be both relatable and hopeful, so I would definitely recommend it. And the third book pick for this week is Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics by Dan Harris with Jeff Warren. So Dan Harris was a co-anchor of the weekend edition of Good Morning America, as well as the anchor for Nightline. He's a very well-known journalist, but also had a viral video where he had a panic attack on live air. And he has really leaned into meditation. Meditation is something that I have wanted to do more in my life. I see the benefits of it, but the ADHD brain is not really interested in meditation. It sounds difficult. So this book really caught my eye, Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics. Yes, that's me. And again, I loved the relatable aspects of this book. I love the way he went into it. As a skeptic, meditation has really changed his life and impacted him. But I love the really practical approach that's here. For example, one of the things that's talked about in the book is making a goal to have daily-ish meditation. So often we have this all or nothing mindset. We start a New Year's resolution on January 1st. We miss on January 3rd, so the whole year's ruined and we throw it out. Daily-ish gives us room to do it messy and to keep going. It also talks about how a 1-minute meditation can still be powerful in your life. And so if you can't do it for 20 minutes, scale it to what's doable, because 1 minute is far more powerful than nothing, which goes to another one of my favorite books that at one point I'll review, which is Atomic Habits by James Clear. And this idea of being able to have the important habits in our life that we're trying to establish, to make them scalable, it makes them more attainable. And there's so much value to that, because done is better than perfect, because perfect's really never done, you know? So I definitely would recommend this book. I'm not quite finished with it, but it is another one that I would recommend. As a final note, our Solidarity Sister Book Club will be starting Brene Brown's Gifts of Imperfection in just a couple of weeks. We're going to start meeting on Thursdays, beginning February 22nd, from 7 to 7:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time each week via Zoom. At the same time, we're going to have a Marco Polo group that just has a running conversation We're going to be going over the book through a period of 15 weeks. There will be 4 weeks kind of going through the beginning sections before we get into the 10 guideposts, and then 1 conclusion and follow-up week. I'm really excited about this book club and for the opportunity for us to grow together in community, because I'm telling you, everything is more powerful in community, especially when you're putting yourself in a community of people who want to grow and develop and change. Interestingly, going back to James Clear in Atomic Habits, a lot of people asked him as he was writing the book and as he was going on his book tours and whatnot, what the most important habit is. And in the beginning, he really didn't know what that was. He didn't have a way to quantify that. But over time, the conclusion he's come to is it is about who you make a habit of spending time with. And there's a saying that's pretty well known, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. When you put yourself around people who want to see the best in you, want to grow and change in positive ways, that is going to be the best road to you becoming your best self. So take a look at the people that you spend the most time with. If you are hoping to become more compassionate, are you surrounded by compassionate people? If you are on a journey of self-discovery, self-growth, and you really want to level up, are you around people who are trying to do the same? We do become like the people that we spend time with. And so I think that's just a great reminder to us to be intentional about where we're spending our time. It doesn't mean that we can't be kind to everyone. I am a huge proponent of being kind to everyone. But who are the people that are really in the center of your life? And where are they focused? That will make a big difference. And if you find yourself in a position where you are connected to family members that you need to stay connected to, and maybe they're not your best advocates, you can stay connected to them, but also find a group of friends in a community there that will still continue to help inspire and support you. So I would love to have you reading Gifts of Imperfection with us. I hope that you'll all be able to take part in that. If you cannot afford the book or the audiobook, you cannot get it at your library, please reach out to me and we will get you a copy. And if you are someone who can afford to sponsor someone else, also please reach out to me so that I can match up those requests with those offers and we can make sure that everyone who wants to participate has access to the book and we can work through that together. So thank you for listening to the first Monday Minisode of Solidarity Sister. If you're finding these podcasts helpful, I would love for you to think of someone that you could share them with. And also leave me a 5-star review. Apple is the only podcast app that allows you to go in and actually leave a written review. But feel free to rate me on Spotify or anywhere else where you're listening. That is a small way that you can show support if this is something that's meaningful and helpful to you. Thank you for being part of the Solidarity Sister community. We needed you. Solidarity Sister.